Direct from Fort Meade, Maryland, this is DINFOS Live.
Hello and welcome to a very special 2-year anniversary episode of DINFOS Live. I'm your host, Major David J. Murphy, an instructor with the Defense Information School. On this month's episode, we'll be speaking to Lieutenant Commander Jack Georges, an instructor with the Joint Intermediate and Joint Contingency Public Affairs courses. He'll detail what these courses are and how they can help improve our DoD PA professionals. Before we bring him out, though, I want to take a moment to welcome our first guest who will be talking to us all about the DINFOS Hall of Fame program, the Chief of the International Military Student Office, Mr. Rivers Johnson. Welcome to the program, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Major Murphy.
Please have a seat. Thank you for joining us today. We're really eager to learn about this very important program, but before we do, I want to make sure to introduce our social media moderator for this month. Joining us again is Lance Corporal Dylan Grasso. Lance Corporal Grasso, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Welcome back to the program. I hear you're working on some very interesting stuff out at Parris Island.
Yes, so we're doing a docuseries, and for one of our episodes, it is naturalization. And so we're going down there to interview drill instructors that have got their, what is it called? They've joined citizenship, yes. They've got their citizenship in the United States through joining the military, in the Marine Corps specifically.
Wow, that's amazing. Well,
Yes.
look forward to seeing that. If you have any questions for any of our guests, don't hesitate to leave them down in the comments below. Or if you're part of our live in-studio audience, feel free to ask your questions. Let's give it up, live studio audience. That's right, folks. We actually have a real live studio audience here today. So again, if any of you have any questions, come right up to the mic and ask our guests away. And if you want to be part of our live studio audience and happen to be around the Fort Meade area when we're doing our show, just send me an email, dmurphy@dinfos.edu, and I'll be happy to get you access into the building. All right, well, let's get on with the show. First off, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your time in the PA career field, Mr. Johnson?
Okay, well, thank you, Major Murphy, for inviting me here to discuss the Defense Information School's Hall of Fame program. Well, first and foremost, I am a career Army Public Affairs officer, having spent 23 of 30 years in the career field at all levels, White House, NSA Cyber Command, and the Pentagon. I currently serve as the Chief of the International Military Student Office at DINFOS. Essentially, I am the Commandant subject matter expert for all things international. As most know, we get approximately 25 international military students a year, and my job is to ensure that they have quality of life for the time here. And so whether that's from an admin standpoint, logistics, or culturally.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, it couldn't have picked a more qualified individual to run this highly important and prestigious program. But can you tell us, what is the Hall of Fame program exactly?
Well, great question. So well, first of all, I'd like to say that DINFOS is the world's premier audiovisual and public affairs training institute.
Absolutely.
The DINFOS Hall of Fame program established in 2013. It honors and recognizes those DINFOS alumni who've made extraordinary, significant, or lasting contributions at all levels in a number of professions. The service includes government, the military, private sector, education, and things like that.
That's really cool. Who are some of the notable folks who are already in the program or have been inducted?
Well, good question. I'll give you about three. The first one being the late Walter Mondale, Army veteran. He was also Minnesota's senator, but more importantly, he was the 42nd Vice President of the United States.
Wow.
Some remember actually Captain Dale Dye, United States Marine Corps, Vietnam veteran, recipient of the Purple Heart. Technical movie advisor, director, and actor. You may have seen him in movies like Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers, Starship Troopers, and Platoon. And the last one I'll mention is Clarence Page, Pulitzer Prize winning author, currently works for the Chicago Tribune.
Wow, that's quite some rarefied air there.
Absolutely.
What are some qualifications for nominations?
Well, good question. So first and foremost, they must be a DINFOS alumni, a graduate. The next consideration is 20 years of public service in academia, the industry. It could be education, entertainment, strategic communication, things like that.
Wow. If I think somebody is, right for this program and I should consider them for potential admission to the program, what would I go about submitting someone for that? How would I go about doing that?
Well, they can visit the Defense Information School's homepage and click About, and they'll have information there. We have some information provided on the screen now, the link where they can go to. If they have further questions, they can call me direct, so my number should be there as well, but it's 443-864-9212. I'd be happy to answer any questions they have.
That's great. And don't forget, and if you've missed that link, it'll be in the show notes, so you can find it there. So what is the deadline to submit, and when will the induction ceremony actually take place?
Well, the deadline for nominations for submission is the 30th of April. The actual program is 9 August, and the inductees should be announced by the 1st of June.
Okay, great. Well, before we say goodbye to you, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, again, there are a lot of great Americans that have served our country in the communications field that are DINFOS graduates. If our audience members feel that someone's deserving, just go to the website or give me a call and make sure we put in the nominations and recognize these great Americans who have served our country from a communications perspective.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for your time, Mr. Johnson. Really appreciate it, and wish you well with your program.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'd now like to welcome our main guest for today's episode, Lieutenant Commander Georges. Lieutenant Commander Georges, welcome to the program.
How are you? Good to be back.
Great to have you. Of course, you're no stranger to the program.
Nope.
You've been here as a guest multiple times, and you've sat in the hosting chair, so great to have you back. But for those folks who may not be familiar with your experience and expertise, can you kind of give us a quick rundown of your PA career field background?
Yeah, I've been in the field for 18 years. I came into the Navy as a mass communication specialist, did that for several years. And then I came on over to the dark side as public affairs officer. So during all that time, I've got a couple tours to Iraq doing a lot of VI work. Over in Navy region, Europe, Africa, Central, that's in Naples, Italy. Great tour of duty. The aircraft carriers USS Theodore Roosevelt and George Washington, as well as Naval Station Rota, which if anybody gets an opportunity to go to Rota, highly recommend.
Yeah, I had a 24-hour layover there one time, and it was an awesome experience. I'd love to go back. So you're here to talk to us about the Joint Intermediate Public Affairs course and the Joint Contingency Public Affairs course. Can you talk to me about what are these courses and who are they for?
The courses, they are follow-on from your initial training after you've had a few years of experience out in the fleet and field. So really, we're looking for seasoned communicators from across the DoD as well as the federal interagency. And we're looking for probably, senior enlisted NCOICs, as well as typically 03 to 05 officers. We get junior to that sometimes, and that's okay, that's fine. We're looking for that experience to bring back some knowledge from the fleet and field and share it with others.
Right, because that makes their experience during the course that much more substantial, right?
Absolutely.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about the differences between these two courses?
So as you mentioned, we have two. So it's a Joint Intermediate Public Affairs course and the Joint Contingency Public Affairs course. And one basic difference is that JIPAC, as we call it, is 27 training days. And JICPAC is 10. So obviously, JICPAC is shorter. But our intermediate course, that focuses a lot on, there's a heavy emphasis on organizational leadership and change. So it's got a component that's contingency, but a lot of it is steady state operations and how do you as a public affairs officer help lead your organization into tomorrow. And then the contingency course, like I said, 10 days, and that's all about operating with the Joint Task Force in a contested environment and really going through the entire planning process.
Okay, great. Here we have a question from social media. So, Lance Grasso, hit us.
All right, from Lieutenant Kim Kelly. Do you recommend someone spend time in the fleet or field after graduating PAX-Q before attending the intermediate courses?
Thanks for the question. I absolutely recommend that someone spend some time in the fleet and field before you go to JICPAC or JIPAC, because we're going to expect that you have some basic skills down pat so we can build on that. And it makes a whole lot more sense if you have that experience to bring to the table and build this training onto.
Absolutely. Now, with regard to prerequisites, I did want to ask a question that was emailed prior to the show. National Guard soldiers, can they attend the course as well?
Of course. So as I mentioned earlier, it's for anybody from the federal interagency. So our guardsmen, our Coast Guardsmen, active duty, all that are welcome in the course.
Great. And what would these students get out of the course?
Well, so again, there are two different courses. So with the JIPAC course, you can think of that as a more broad scope training for a public affairs officer, public affairs professional, and where you're learning a lot about assessing your organization's capabilities, its mandates, its processes. We do a lot of strategic foresight and forecasting work. We have a numerous guest speakers that from industry and academia that come and engage with the students. And we do a lot of crisis communications. And that's all about, as I said, really being able to kind of look out into the future, have some predictive sense of what's coming, and prepare your organization for that future. Be best equipped to handle it and thrive in it. And then the Joint Contingency Public Affairs course, that's really about being able to come together with a joint staff and plan military operations against an adversary, but also applicable, all these skills applicable for like disaster response and that type of thing.
Now, much of what we teach in the schoolhouse is informed by doctrine and policy within the DoD, and Joint Publication 3-04 recently came out, which had a big impact in terms of affecting what we teach and what we might teach in the future. Can you tell our audience what that is and how it might or has impacted your courses?
Yeah, 304, it came out, it was signed in September. We've kind of been working from that playbook for a little while now, developing the ways to implement what JP3-04 calls for. So again, that's information in joint operations. And that's a document for all operators. It's not just for public affairs professionals or your PSYOP professionals. And that's because 304 calls for information to be a fundamental part of military operations, not just a supporting feature, sprinkle a little PA over here when you'd like it. And so it really asks us, in fact, it mandates that we be in the driver's seat for some of these things. It changes a lot of vocabulary, so there's no information warfare or no information operations, doctrinally speaking. Instead, that's operations in the information environment, or OIE. It creates some new staff products, and it also places a heavy emphasis on narrative. And it tells us that public affairs leads that process. So that's a lot of the work that we're doing right now, understanding what narrative is and working on how to build that and incorporate it into our communications. And additionally, it calls for us to co-chair two really important working groups, the Information Planning Cell and the Information Cross-Functional Team.
Talk to me a little bit more about the Information Planning Cell as a concept. What is that and how does it inform informations within the operating environment?
Well, we use it in the schoolhouse. It is part of the vehicle in operational design. So our scenario for JIPAC starts way in the beginning, understanding what the problem is and developing the operational approach to it. And it brings together your information forces, whatever your joint staff may have at its disposal. So think about, again, your PSYOPs, civil affairs, your intel folks, and definitely public affairs. And it brings those folks together with targeting officers, like a fires officer, as well as your strategy and plans folks, because it is how we understand information's effect on the problem that we're facing, and how information will be used as a method of operation when achieving the commander's end state.
Great, great. And I just want to remind our studio audience that they are more than welcome to put Lieutenant Commander Georges on the spot. Here we go, a volunteer. Please say your name and ask your question.
Hi, Lieutenant Commander Georges. I'm Lieutenant Commander Kate Sheeran, a PAX-Q instructor at DINFOS. My question is about feedback you've received from your students, either JIPAC or JICPAC. Have you received any feedback about how they implemented what they learned in your course in the real world?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Kate. I appreciate it. So yeah, we have received some feedback, and one of the pieces in particular that we've received some feedback on is our information environment running assessment tool. So that's something that students will be able to take with them when they leave the schoolhouse, and that's a tool that we've developed so that they can track and assess the information environment through the lens of narrative and be able to depict that to other information forces in places such as the information planning cell, information cross-functional team, and be able to succinctly brief their commanders on what the battle space looks like.
Very cool. Thanks, Jack.
Yep.
All right, let's keep it going. We got a question from social media. Let's hear it.
We do. From Samuel Weir. Should someone attend one or the other course?
Ooh.
Or would you advise someone attend both courses?
That's a great question. And the short answer is both, really. The contingency course, I would say, go to that if you are going to a joint command, particularly one that is likely to or has the potential to deploy, whether in response to disaster or other national contingencies, because that'll introduce you or at least get your, burnish your skills on working with a joint staff and understanding how that process works and really being an effective team member. And then JIPAC, that is really about filling out your skills, your capabilities as a public affairs officer, not just in contingency planning, but again, like I said, as an organizational leader and just being the best PAO that you can be. So the short answer is both.
As someone who actually attended both courses before I went to Special Operations Command Korea, they were immensely helpful in terms of helping me understand the joint environment and how public affairs plays a role in information operations within the joint environment. So I definitely appreciated the guidance that I got from those courses, so couldn't recommend it enough. You talked about some of the skills that students will develop during the course. Can you kind of go into more detail and kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, so students will develop and really hone a lot of skills. They'll hone some skills that they already have, and they'll develop skills that maybe they haven't had. And, the courses are really complex and in-depth, so there's lots of things that you're going to do. So I'll emphasize one in particular, and it's actually one that our students in our current JICPAC class that's going on right now. In fact, they are getting ready to sit through their first information planning cell, or I shouldn't say sit through it, lead their first information planning cell.
Nice.
And so the skill is narrative. Right, it's about narrative analysis and then developing narrative for your command. We walk through what the concept of narrative is, talking about narratives as systems of stories and enduring master narratives that that live through culture, and they really define people's sense of self and identity. And we've worked through the process of deconstructing the information environment into narrative so that we can see who is impacted, who is propagating narrative throughout the information space, how those narratives impact us, and how we use those narratives to effectively communicate. Right? So we're not just talking at somebody, but the information we're sending, how we can package it in a way that will, whoever receives it will retain the same meaning that we're trying to communicate. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest skills that they'll use, because that takes us through understanding narrative and doing our audience analysis. And again, that's a function that we're supposed to lead. And if we aren't good at doing it and we don't know what we're doing, someone else is going to do it. And that'll be a golden opportunity missed for us.
Absolutely. We have another question from social media.
From Stephanie Hatcher. What grade or rank do you have to be to attend this course?
The basic prerequisites for JICPAC and JIPAC are to have attended either PAQC, our legacy qualification course for public affairs, and then the new PAX-Q. So that's the fundamental baseline. Each service has their own additional requirements for attending. So if you go to the website, the DINFOS website, I think you're going to include the link in the show
Absolutely.
notes.
Yep.
You can see on there what the prerequisites are by service. But I would say that the best grade to really attend at is the senior enlisted E7 above, and then 03 to 05. Now, that being said, we have folks junior to that who do exceptionally well in the course. So those grades are really just a rough estimate of experience. So if you've got seasoned experience out there, that's what you really need to bring to the class.
Yeah, we actually had a first lieutenant Marine in my class when I went, and he was very much a big contributor to everything we did. So,
yep.
All right, we have another question from the audience. Please state your name and your question.
Hi, I'm Adam Lau. I'm an Army PAO. Piggybacking off that, is there a waiting period after you take the PAC-CS the PAX-Q course to take these courses?
So there's no specific waiting period on DINFOS side. We don't stipulate anything in particular. That there may be something related to that by service. And so if that requirement exists, I'd encourage you to talk to your training officer and however you would normally apply to DINFOS. From my experience teaching the course and my public affairs experience and knowing what the course is, I would recommend that you have at least a few years out in the fleet and field before you come back to the course. You know, you receive training, it's best if you implement it, you become comfortable with the training that you have so you can come back and really incorporate new ideas and skills into the toolbox you've already got. And so that would be my recommendation to you.
Thank you.
Yep.
You know, since we talked about prerequisites and we talk about experience from the field, can you kind of briefly talk about the differences between student interaction teaching in obviously the basic course, PAX-Q, and the intermediate course, and kind of what those conversations feel like and how you moderate that?
So our courses, we do a lot of group work. And in particular in this JICPAC class, it's from day one to the end, you will be working as a close team. And I hope that you'll like everybody. But what we're really looking for is people to bring their experience, because we're not only learning new skills, we're growing new knowledge, and we're developing some new approaches. I have a gunnery sergeant in my class who just today shared with me some training she received from NATO. That looks like it would complement a lot, really well, some of the content that we're looking at. So we can take that kind of stuff and that kind of feedback and see how it fits with what we're doing. And so students working together, you know, they are able to better attack the problems that they face from different perspectives. And, you know, it's a golden opportunity for us to come back as a community, learn from one another, and then learn from other services, because, you know, undoubtedly the Air Force has some best practices that the Navy would benefit from, and vice versa. So I think that's a key, you know, benefit of these courses.
Absolutely. You know, you talked about experiences and knowledge, but what about tools? What specific tools will students be able to take back with them to their units?
So we provide the students a pretty robust toolkit, a resource for them to take with them out of the schoolhouse. And so I'll hit on two. One I just mentioned with Lieutenant Commander Sheeran's question, and that is our information environment assessment tool, which, and I don't think I actually mentioned it when she asked her question. We had one of our previous students, was an exercise out with Marines in California, brought it to the table, and he said in his words that it blew away his fire and effects folks, and that they were able to use this at the operational level and to incorporate information into all their planning. So that was great to hear from him. And he actually provided us a few recommendations for updates to make it more applicable in the field, which we've incorporated, and that's fantastic. So you'll be able to walk away with that tool, and that, again, it helps you track information disorder, the rising and falling trends of narratives, how they shift and refine over time, and who's involved in those narratives. We use the BEND framework, which I think some of our PAX-Q students are probably familiar with, and we get to exercise this in real depth, and that's developing a common language, a common vocabulary for describing approaches to the information environment. And then also a narrative construct tool. So I talked about how do you analyze narratives. Well, this tool breaks it down for you, all the aspects, components of narrative that you're looking for. So as you do your environmental scanning, you can construct those. And so those are just an example of some of the tools that students will receive.
Excellent. Well, I think I'm going to switch places with Lance Corporal Grasso, because we got another question from social media.
Yes, we do. From Kenneth Miller. How often are these courses updated to keep current with the information environment?
Yeah.
Well, I will say I updated the lesson I gave yesterday about an hour before I delivered it.
Wow.
And I just say that to say that every iteration we go through, we are looking to refine what we're delivering. And a lot of that comes from recommendations from our students. It comes from the research that we're doing. We have relationships with members of the Joint Force across numerous information forces, some from SOCCENT right now who are virtually engaged with our class. And so we are constantly looking out there to see what is at the leading edge right now for communication. What do we need to know? And not just what do we need to know, but how does PA define how to deal with some of these problems? So every iteration, we review what we've done and we update it. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, such a dynamic environment to teach in, right? Because it's changing all the time. Can you talk to me about like a specific assignment that you would give students in either of the courses?
Sure. So we produce. I'll talk about one that we're doing now. I can mention another, but students will produce a communication strategy in our JICPAC class, and they do that alongside COA development, course of action development. And what they're producing is they're producing a way public affairs will implement information in their area of responsibility for a COA. Not to tack onto it, but how do they build out the concept of the course of action. And we do that in alignment with an information line of operation that our students build. So it's robust, it's like a comp plan, but we're attaching it to an entire line of operation that's defined by the students in accordance with, that's executed in accordance with several lines of effort, again defined by them, and that is attacking centers of gravity that the students produce after doing a COG analysis. So it's really interlinked, but it's a really effective tool to think about communication and implement communication operationally.
That's great. What are something that's like unique about these courses compared to other courses at the schoolhouse?
Well, I think I'll talk about them individually. JICPAC, I think that's unique, is the degree and depth to which we go into narrative analysis and development and the real nitty-gritty planning that students are going to do through the joint planning process. And something else that we have not done in other classes is we actually do operational design. And so, like one of our instructors, Mr. Steve Von Jett, he likens it to operational design being the riverbed and the joint planning process being the river that flows through it. And so it's really cool. I mean, students get to define the operational approach. They get to take part in defining the operational approach, not just making the plans for it. And then in our intermediate public affairs course, students will be tasked with two things. They write a position paper on a program, a process, something that they would like to address to deal with information disorder or leveraging future technologies for their command, for their organization. And then they'll take that position paper and they'll build an innovation paper that fully fleshes out what this innovation is. It describes the implementation of this plan, the strategic change models that they will employ to actually implement this, build coalitions within their organization, how they're going to measure its implementation and the effects that it receives or it produces in the long run. And they're going to do that. They're going to demonstrate that the innovation that they are building aligns with their organization's mandates, authorities, and processes.
Excellent. That sounds very good, very informative. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we say goodbye to you?
Well, I would just like to say that we'd love for you to come on down, take the course. Take either of the courses. They're really, really good. It's a chance for you to help us improve the courses, meet and learn from with your fellow public affairs professionals across the force. Things are changing. 304 offers a really great opportunity for public affairs to take the wheel here and drive the development of information and its application in military operations. So don't miss the chance, right? It'll be fun, I promise, and we'll all benefit from it.
Absolutely, and perhaps someday we'll see the Joint Advanced Public Affairs course. Perhaps,
you never know.
Indeed, indeed. All right, well, again, thank you so much for your time, Lieutenant Commander Georges. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate all our guests taking time out to be on our program and talk about, of course, their very important issues and topics that's going on with the Defense Information School. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I want to thank our studio audience. Let's give it up. Woo! So great. So great. So again, if you're looking for anything we talked about in today's show, you'll find links down in the show notes. And again, remember that you can also listen to the show rather than just watch it. Just download it as a podcast. Just search DINFOS Live in your podcatcher of choice. I'm sure you'll find it there. You know, folks, it's kind of amazing to think that this show has already been on the air for 2 years. I've been helming the show for more than a year now, and it's been an honor to be part of such a seminal program for DINFOS. But, you know, I couldn't have done this show alone. So let's give it up for the crew of DINFOS Live. Let's have all these amazingly talented folks come out here onto stage, because ultimately it's you all who make the show happen. We can't do this show without you. And I'd also like to thank our audience for coming on. Come on audience. Come on out. Give it up. Again, in, we are going to enjoy some cake. So come on, audience. Come on up here. Get some cake. All right, everybody. We will see you all next month.